everybody. Welcome. Your Saltwater Guide, Captain Dave Hanson. We got a really fun show today. And I can't do this without Promar. So Promar Ahi is our sponsors for our Monday and Tuesday shows and our live fishing shows. So all hail goes to Promar Ahi. We'll show you a cool little video in a little bit. But thank you, everyone over at Promar Ahi. And we'll be traveling with Promar Ahi to the ICAST show. You guys can come and hang out, meet me, and check out all the great products they have at Promar Ahi. We'll be there in their booth every day at the ICAST show. Very, very excited about ICAST coming up. Right, Tom?
Yes, sir. I'll be there. Love to get together with you. That'll be awesome.
Absolutely. We're planning on coming over and watching you do your podcast there on the show floor. I'm pretty excited about it. Maybe we can talk about sea lions for a few minutes.
Okay. Sounds good.
Our favorite animal out here on the West Coast, right, Michael Fowlkes?
They're something else.
So, gang, I got Michael Fowlkes, the history of sport fishing, and we all grew up watching him inside sport fishing. Then we got Tom Rowland from the East Coast, kind of doing what Michael did for all of us on the West Coast. A lot of people our age grew up watching Tom and his crew over there on the East Coast, Florida area. So, Tom, if you could kind of give our viewers on the West Coast kind of an idea of what everyone knows Michael. I mean, we all grew up with him, but a lot of us on the West Coast didn't really know about what you did. And you turned Michael on to some really good footage for the history of sport fishing. So you got a ton of great history. So could you kind of explain to everybody what you did?
Sure.
Over there?
So my partner, Rich Tudor, and I, we both started out as fishing guides in the Florida Keys. I was in Key West. Actually, before that even, I was a fishing guide in Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana, so a little closer to home for you guys. But made my way to saltwater, started guiding in Key West, and then ended up fishing in a lot of tournaments, including the professional redfish tournament, which came at a time which was pretty inconvenient. I was having babies. We were growing our family, and that was pulling me away from home. So what I wanted to do was to try to continue to do something like that and not have to travel so much, because I didn't want to be away from my family. And that led to a show called Saltwater Experience. And that show started out on the Outdoor Channel. Then the following year, it was on Outdoor Life Network. We had another show on ESPN, or ESPN2, I should say. And so there was a national audience to that show. So I think some people on your coast saw it. It probably came on pretty early. But that's how we got started. And then we grew that one show into several more. We have a show now called Into the Blue, which is an all offshore show. We have a show called Life on the Water, and also the podcast. So that's as short as I can make it.
That's a full cool.
As far as Michael making his show out here on the West Coast, he did all the editing, he did everything, he put it all together. Is that kind of what you and your partner do?
No, that is not what we did. In fact, we were as close to that as we could. We hired all the people, and all these camera guys came from the bass world, and they were really good at what they were doing, but they were not. I don't know. It just didn't work. The first year, the show wasn't very good at all, and we needed help. We're definitely not editors, and you got to remember back then. Michael will remember. I mean, this is nothing like the edit that you do today. I mean, we were basically shooting on. I mean, we were one step away from shooting on film. And so you're shooting with beta cams and these big tapes, and you had to have, everything was extremely expensive. I mean, these cameras, Michael, you would laugh as I do now. You wouldn't use one of these cameras that was $150,000 to hold the door open today. I mean, every kid has something that's a million times better in their pocket than what we were shooting on. But at the time, incredibly expensive. The cameras, the lenses, the editing equipment, the computers to do it all, incredibly expensive, and incredible barrier for entry, which that has been probably the biggest thing that I've seen change is just the barrier for entry. If somebody wants to produce any sort of video today, whether it's on fishing or anything else, you can do a better job with your phone than we were doing 20 years ago.
With $250,000 worth of gear.
Yes, at least.
At
I
least.
mean, and then the edit equipment and everything else that's all in this phone today is really amazing. So we did not. Our big secret to the success that we were able to have was that we hired the right person. And you might remember on ESPN there was a show, and one of the first people, and I'm sure he appears in your book, Jerry McInnes.
Oh,
Jerry
sure.
McInnes had the fishing hole, and Jerry McInnes had a daughter named Shannon, and he had a son named Mike who worked with him, but he also had another son that we called Hop. And we hired Hop to edit our show. And he had a lot of experience editing his dad's show and other shows, and he put together a beautiful show. And as soon as we brought him on, the show was just completely transformed. And without him, we wouldn't have gotten off the ground, because we tried the first year, and the show just wasn't very good. It was not good at all. And it took what was interesting about our show is that at the time, all the shows on TV were single host format. So you had Bill Dance, Roland Martin, Jerry McInnes, even Jose Wahebe.
Right.
They were all single host format, talking directly to the camera. We had two of us, and so it was so awkward for us to try to follow the path of all these other successful shows, because it just was cumbersome, and it wasn't working to have him talk to the camera, have me talk to the camera. And that's where Hop came in and really gave us a good idea of this interview style, where we sit at this table and it's kind of the over the shoulder interview, kind of like a Dateline interview, but we brought that into the fishing TV shows. Nobody had seen it before. And it wasn't because we were super creative. It was really out of necessity. I mean, there were two of us, and the other way of doing the show was just wasn't working.
Nope.
And so it was pretty interesting, because that was what set it apart. Nobody had seen that before in the fishing space. And so the show did well for that reason. And we're fishing the Keys, and the fishing's great, and we're both professional guides. So like it worked out well, but a lot of it went to who we hired.
The hops. Yeah, the elements were all there, but you need somebody to put it all together.
That's right.
You have to have one person that can tell a story and be able to put that all together. And that's cool. Hop stepped up, because I know Jerry was really instrumental in Bill Dance's career.
Yes, he was. Yeah, I had Bill Dance on the podcast, and he told that story about somebody went to Jerry, and they were like, "We want you to do this," and he's like, "I can't do it. You should hire this guy." And he's like, "I don't even know how to spell TV."
Putting perfume on a pig to put me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
What did you gave us for the history series?
Yeah.
It was that interview with Bill. It was just phenomenal. It's really the core of that whole bass chapter.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool.
He is such a great mentor, and has just been a great ambassador to the sport. But more than anything, he's just been super nice to me personally. He's just been very helpful and very, very nice. I mean, I guess when you're the king, you don't have anything to worry about, but that's not the way that everybody thought about it. I see some young guy coming along, and sometimes you can present a threat to somebody, but not him. He was just as nice and polite and helpful as he could ever been.
He's been the same way with us.
Yeah. I think he's just that way.
Yeah, Pam's daughter's the same way. They're just good people.
Yeah, they are.
Have him tell that story about how he got the series started by going to the networks, and all of them telling him, "Well, no, a local fishing show? What's that? We don't want to be involved with that." And just
Now in that interview that I gave you, you can also remember, like, you were asking if I was editing.
Right.
And I was not editing. But when Bill Dance started this, he was such a pioneer that there probably weren't even people that he could hire to edit. So if he wanted to do this, he was going to do it himself.
Yep.
And he was linear editing. And he would go to he was in Memphis, or near Memphis, and he would go over to Arkansas, and talk to the people over there and say, hey, could I do this show for you for a local, for your local channel? And they would say yes. And so he would do that, and he would do 12 episodes over there. And then he'd go to the next market and he'd do 12 episodes there. And he told me he was editing like, I don't know, it was a lot, over 100 shows all the time, linear editing like that.
Oh, it's insane compared to what we have today. I look back at linear editing and it's crazy. And
well, it would be like today, you have like 30 of the biggest YouTube channels in the world or something. Like just this workflow that's just, how do you put out, 3,000 videos a week?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it would be, kind of the equivalent of, I think.
I was getting out a half hour a week, 24 shows a year. It was shows. It was killing me.
That's what you were doing, 24 shows a year. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a show every other week. And it was all linear. And there's no going back and fixing it. I mean, if you screw it up, you got to start over.
That's right.
So,
that's tough.
And those beta cams weighed 48 pounds with the big battery packs on them. And you're out there just rocking and rolling through that little lens. It was like tunnel vision.
That's right. And the battery packs weren't very good, not like today. So you had to have a lot of them. So your bag that you carry the thing in is another 100 pounds.
Yep, exactly. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was a good time to get started for us. But I like the way we do it today better.
Yeah. Well, you've done a phenomenal job, Tom. I mean, between you and Dave, I feel like I'm sitting in between the two biggest podcasters in the industry. I'm just honored to be here. You guys have just taken it by the balls and just run with it.
Oh, well, thanks. It's been a good time. I mean, the podcast for me has been kind of more of it started out as like a passion project. I wanted to talk to somebody like Bill Dance. I wanted to sit down and also, at the time I was kind of thinking, there's probably some stories there that will never get told otherwise. And so I went around to all the people that I watched on TV when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I watched on Saturday mornings, if I wasn't fishing, I watched all the fishing shows and then professional wrestling. That's what was on. I mean, there were only 3 channels, right? So you would either watch that, or I don't know, Lawrence Welk or something would be on the other channels. And so I watched fishing and professional wrestling. That's what I watched. And I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which was a pretty good place to fish. And then we had this place called the Memorial Auditorium, which was the Georgia Championship Wrestling, and they would come through the Memorial Auditorium, and all the best wrestlers would come through there. Everybody that you've ever heard of came through the Memorial Auditorium. I never went to a match. I just watched it on TV. But it was kind of this, that was my Saturday morning.
That's so
cool. I wanted to talk to some of those people that I had grown up watching, Bill Dance, Roland Martin, Jimmy Houston, Hank Parker, Mark Sosin. I never did get to have Mark Sosin on the podcast. I would have liked to have had him on.
Ray Scott? Did you ever have Ray Scott on?
I have not. I don't know. Is Ray Scott still around?
Oh, he's passed.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured he must be getting up there if he was still with us, but I did not have him. So there, I've missed some, but for the most part, I've been able to talk to a lot of those, the guys that I watched on TV, and then a lot of the, what I considered up and comers, and now they're, retiring. Like Mike Iaconelli is retiring this year. Yeah. I mean, and I talk about bass fishing. I'm just a fan of fishing, like I'm a fan of bass fishing. So I know all those guys because I used to watch, I mean, that would be on too. You'd watch the fishing shows, and then there was a tournament on, and then professional wrestling would start after that. So that was my Saturday.
And Mike Iaconelli, he is such a fun guy to watch because he kind of has the same thing that the 3 of us have. He kind of just loves to fish, period, and loves to pass it on to everybody, his knowledge. He doesn't hold back. Like a lot of the younger people today, they think that their little secret is the greatest thing in the world. And then you got Ike, and he is just give back, which is just probably some of the coolest stuff. Tom, I wanted to ask you, my father, he was in the sport boat industry forever, and he kind of told Michael Fowlkes a long time ago that you kind of made our industry relevant. Michael would come out and film, and that's why it's so important for what you've done and what Michael does, is it brought our industry to the masses. people could sit at home on a Saturday, children could sit at home on a Saturday morning and see this fishing thing that you could only dream about. And my dad used to tell Michael, you made us relevant. Is that kind of what you hear from the guys on the East Coast?
Well,
from what you guys did?
there were a number of people. Flip Pallet was probably the first. Well, Mark Sosin was probably the first to really bring flats fishing to television, but he did it in a slightly different way. And he, his show was really good, and he had a tremendous amount of history and the Met tournament and all the different stuff that he had done. And Mark Sosin, actually, he didn't do much fly fishing on his show, but he was quite a fly fisherman, and did a lot in the Met tournament with fly fishing. But then came along Flip Pallet and his show Walker's Cay Chronicles. I think that show was the first one that really brought flats fishing, like you're talking about, brought it into the homes of millions of people that had never seen that before. And then I think a lot of those people became fishermen because of it. And then Jose was after that. And there were quite a few others. Rick Murphy already had a show when we got ours started, but there really weren't very many flats fishing shows. I mean, that was kind of it. Rick Murphy, us, maybe there was a couple more, but there just wasn't much distribution back then. I mean, ESPN would put it on, the Outdoor Channel would put it on, the Outdoor Life Network, and then there was a Monday, I think it was a Monday night block on TNN, which back then was called the Nashville Network, and that's where Shaw Grigsby's show was, and they used to have really big ratings on TNN. And then that went away, but there just were so few channels compared to what we have today. Like we have so many channels, and then you have YouTube, and you have all the social media, and you have everything else, and there's just so many channels. There's so many places you can put your stuff. It's so hard to find people's stuff today.
Exactly. On the West Coast, I remember when I was a kid, and when the Wild World of Sports would have Kurt Gowdy on there, and Kurt Gowdy would be, he'd hunt a lot, but when he would go fishing, and then they would chum that they're going to be going fishing, then we'd watch 10 minutes of commercials, then we'd wait, we'd get 3 minutes of him fishing. But that was like cutting edge for me. That was like the most coolest thing. So when you guys were putting your shows together and it was coming out for kids, and not that we're both the same age, but just watching fishing on TV was such a bitchin' thing for a kid growing up. It was just so spectacular. I had Weiland on the show a couple days ago, the artist, and we were talking about Sunday nights. And you guys are probably the same. We're our favorite night of the week because you had the Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Then you had the Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau. Then you had the Wonderful World of Disney. It was the greatest time to be a kid, right?
That was really amazing like that. And I guess, that does turn into the Discovery Channel and different things, and Shark Week today or something like that. But those were really good nights of the week for television, because that's a lot of education for kids, like entertainment, but education too. Like Jacques Cousteau, I mean, that was some incredible stuff that he was doing back then. Because like we're talking about the cameras and stuff. Imagine taking the cameras down where he was going.
Oh, insane.
I mean, it's this massive thing. Probably, I don't even know how you would do it.
Almost have to have a hoist to get it off the boat.
Yeah, I'm sure.
He had those light bars that were like a chopper. They were like a chopper, these big light bars. That camera had to weigh 30, 40 pounds or something.
Easily.
Right,
the underwater housing. It was crazy. Our first housings were huge. We had one set up actually that we set up with a swivel so we could put the jigs behind it and troll with it. And it was we had it all custom made with a torpedo nose built into the housing and everything. And every time I'd go to get it out, my wife would go, "Okay, deploy the fish deterrent. I'm going to take a nap."
That's right. I mean, things like that where you're trying to get some kind of a shot at the time that you just know nobody's gotten the shot. I mean, you're like watching everything, right? And you've never seen this shot. So if you haven't seen this shot, it doesn't exist. And I remember one of the pieces of history that that I was involved in would be the Chasing Silver movies with Jamie Howard.
Mhm.
He came down to the Keys and he had this idea that he wanted to do this real cinematic documentary of tarpon fishing. And I thought it was a great idea. And I liked Jamie and I was like, yeah, man, I'll do it with you. That's great. So I took him fishing a bunch with my friend, with my client Fitz Coker. We were in that movie together. But he was like, how could we do something here that nobody's ever done? I said, you know what? Get a helicopter and fly the ocean and shoot these tarpon, swimming down the ocean. Nobody's ever seen that, man. No one has ever seen that. And he's like, how much is a helicopter? I'm like, about 10,000 an hour, He's like, well, we're not getting a helicopter. It's like, well, how else can we do it? So we started looking into these other things. Ended up that there was this little ultralight
Blimp.
It was an ultralight death machine is what it was. It was an ultralight on floats.
Oh my God.
And I had been up in it before. See, now my father-in-law is a pilot and he heard that I went up in it. And he told me under no circumstances was I ever supposed to go up in that thing again, because he was like, if you go over 10 feet of land, that thing can get disrupted and you go down. So, I mean, if there's a little draft up, he explained it. He was like, don't do that again. Just promise me you're not going to do it. So I said, okay, I'm not going to do it. So it was a little 2-man deal and you would pick it up in Sugarloaf. And this pilot, I mean, it was like a movie, man. You go up there, this pilot smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, and the camera guy that he had is like, I'll do it. Nobody's ever gotten this shot. Sign me up. And we did that. And he put the cameraman in there. They flew down the ocean. We come back and it's like, did you see him? It's like, yeah, we saw him. And if you go back and look at that movie now, when that movie came out, people went nuts over those shots. There were a few shots in there. They went nuts over these shots. Nobody had seen it before. Today, it's any 8-year-old has a drone that'll do a much better job. Then it had never been done. And I went back and looked at that just recently. And it is the shakiest footage you can imagine. And the float is in the shot. And to think that was like super revolutionary. And also to think that really wasn't very long ago. It really wasn't. That's 20 years ago.
Yep.
And, so when you're talking about deploy the fish deterrent, that's the kind of things that you had to do. That took us a whole day.
Oh,
right?
Just like one shot.
Like to come up with that idea, to do it when the tide's right. So that's a whole day of not fishing to get that one little shot that goes in there.
Yep.
And that's what you were doing, I'm sure, with you dragging the thing behind the boat. Most of the time it didn't work.
Oh, it never worked.
Maybe you get one shot.
It never got bit. It never got bit. We ended up sliding off the swim step with the hookless teasers. When the fish would come out, the marlin would come up into the pattern. As soon as they were in the pattern, 15, 20 feet away from the boat, I'd slide off the swim step and the boat would still be trolling. So I'm out there and these marlin just, but finally got some really good underwater shots. And I thought to myself, my God, this is amazing. But then,
and you're just out there floating around.
Oh yeah. I had one come up and jump and came down and her bill went right across my side of my neck. I got a nice little, rug burn across the side of my neck. And I said, okay, I'm done filming marlin.
Are marlin, I've never swam with a marlin, but are they aggressive? Because I have swum with swordfish and the swordfish is extremely aggressive. I would not advise that at all. We had one to attack our camera. It was, attack our cameraman, and he was holding this camera and it hit the camera and broke its bill off about 8 to 10 inches up in the camera, this hard plastic camera, like a Yeti cooler, hard plastic, right through it, broke the bill off, and then keeps on going. A swordfish is a very mean fish.
Gladiator.
Mean fish. But I've shot sailfish underwater, and they don't have any.
They're just.
They don't. They're not using that bill as a weapon like a swordfish.
They're just going crazy.
A swordfish knows that's That's its weapon.
Oh yeah, it's attacking. I've got
attacking.
a picture of a swordfish's bill going all the way through the front and the
I
side
saw that.
of a wooden
I
hull
saw
boat.
that on your social media. That's incredible. And
Great.
that was also like a mega swordfish.
That was probably a 500 plus. Huge. And then I've also seen one where a swordfish put its bill all the way through the corner of a diving bell where the window is. It hit right at the corner of the window and put its bill all the way through a diving bell at like 2,600 feet.
A diving bell.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever we swordfish in the Keys, but even more so in Louisiana for whatever reason, maybe the fish are a little bit bigger up there. I mean, we have big ones in the Keys too, but they hit the weights, the lead weight with their bill. And I mean, it looks like you took I don't know, like a file and held that weight and hit it as hard as you could. I mean, I don't even think you could dent a lead weight like you with a file like that in your hand and not in the water.
Oh,
so they have the density of the water that they're dealing with, and they are whacking that thing. And I mean, there will be an inch deep or half-inch deep gouges on that.
Yep, they're amazing fish.
They are.
I love them. I absolutely love them. I have so much respect for those swordfish. The pinnacle.
Yeah.
Pinnacle. Yeah.
Lucky that we fished for them in the daytime, because that was one of the things that we had thought about, is like, wouldn't it be cool to like film sword fishing? And at the time in Key West, the way that they would do it in Key West is they would put these big lights out, and it was a real production. You'd have to go out there all night.
Yep.
And you put these big lights out, and these lights are like they're like the lights in a like a long tube light. Yeah. But they would be like 10 feet long or 8 feet long, and you would put them in the water and it would light up everything around. It was a really cool experience. The star show was amazing, and sometimes you'd get a bite, but then people started catching them in the daytime. And I know that we were one of the first, if not the first, to get a daytime swordfish in the Florida Keys. On film. Yeah, with Scott Walker, Captain Scott Walker. This is before, and he's our host of Into the Blue now, but we had him kind of call it a screen test or call it whatever. He was our guest on Saltwater Experience, and we were like, dang, that guy's good on camera. Maybe we should do an offshore show. So that's kind of how that started. But he took us out, and I had never been sword fishing, and I was a flats fisherman mostly. I didn't even really do a lot of offshore fishing at that time. And Scott, I was just amazed. He goes out to the middle of the ocean, and he goes, all right, here we are. And we dropped down, and he didn't have that bait down. I mean, 10 minutes, and we get a bite and catch fish, a nice fish. And I was just so amazed at that at the time, because, the only way that I had done any sword fishing, and the only sword fishing that was really being done productively, was going and doing it at night with this massive operation. And then he just goes out there. I mean, the equivalent of just like, I don't know, it's like if you thought you needed this 18-wheeler full of fishing tackle to go catch a fish, and somebody's like, no, we'll go in the canoe, one rod, and just go out there and catch it. Like, that's how easy he made it seem. And
that's pretty cool.
It wasn't that easy, because we've tried to replicate that a number of times, and it's proven to be day after day after day of no bites. So the first time was the best.
The pros know what they're doing. They make it look easy.
Oh, well, we've gone with him again and gotten blanked. So the pros also get blanked.
Oh yeah. No guarantees.
That's right.
I know Bill DePriest out here on the West Coast. We were doing a lot of the deep dropping a few years ago, and he started deep dropping right off Newport Beach. I mean, everybody was running offshore and hitting these banks, and he just said, I think there's some fish right here in these right off the beach. So he started deep dropping right off Newport and just had a honey hole that was just amazing. So same type of deal, a guy that really understood the water, understood the species, topography, and knew what to do. And Bill really opened up that deep dropping for local guys. So
that's awesome.
Hey, Tommy, tell me your earliest childhood memory of fishing. What was your earliest?
I can tell you, I have an indelible memory. And now there were earlier memories, but this one is the one that really, really stuck with me. I used to fish with my dad a lot, and we used to go to this place, and it was, I've been back there in the last 10 years or so and looked at this place, and it's a little tiny pond. I remember it as a giant big lake, right? And it was called Boston Branch, and it was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And he had a friend that owned this property back there, and there wasn't anything on it. Today, there's houses all around it. He would let us go up there, and we go up there on a Saturday, and we would usually work in the yard before that. So we work in the yard, we cut the grass, we dig worms in the he had a compost pile, and it was a great place for worms. So we'd dig some worms, and sometimes we'd also stop and get crickets. And we he'd be like, hey, let's slip off and go fishing after we cut the grass. And I always thought that was cool. And I was like, yes. I mean, when that would happen, it was amazing. And I remember we went up to there and to this lake, and we were catching fish left and right. And we used all the worms, and we used all the crickets. And he's like, well, I think it's about time to go back. And we're just in this little John boat paddling around. He's paddling me around. I'm catching a fish on every cast, right? It's the best fishing I've ever had. Probably still to this day, I'd put it up there with the best day of fishing I've ever had.
That's so
And
cool.
I'm like, but this is the best part. I'm like, we're not out of crickets. Some got out, and I can hear them in the boat. And I'm crawling around on the bottom of the boat, and I'm catching crickets on the bottom of the boat. And there were about a dozen of them that had gotten out. So he just thought that was funny. I crawl around, I catch a cricket, I put it on, I throw it out there, I catch a fish. And he's like, well, okay, I guess it's time to go home. And we'd be real quiet, and we'd listen. I hear another cricket. And I just kept crawling around in that boat until I had gotten all the crickets out of there. And I think that is probably, that's a memory that I'll never forget. He also took me one time trout fishing, and we only went trout fishing one time that I remember, on a river called the Hiwassee River. And we had just been bass fishing and everything. And I remember just dropping, I remember that the current would come down, and I had never fished in a river before. And the current would swirl. And I just was like, well, if you just drop it in this where it's swirling right there, I guess it was taking the piece of corn right down to the bottom. Now that I think about it, with a fisherman's eye now, like, well, yeah, that was what you would do. You would just drop it into one of these swirls. It would take the corn right to the bottom. I'd catch a trout every time. And I had never seen a trout. And it was just the most beautiful fish that I'd ever seen. And we went on that one trip, and we never went again. And I was like, Dad, how come we don't go trout fishing? And it was a little further away, and he wasn't really a trout fisherman. He's more of a bass fisherman and stuff. But that one also was an indelible memory, that when I became old enough to go and find something that I wanted to do, I found a job in Yellowstone National Park when I was a freshman in college. And I went there in the summertime specifically because I wanted to learn how to trout fish. And I had seen all I used to look through the National Geographic magazines, and there would be articles on Fishing Bridge and all the different places in Yellowstone that you could fish. And I was like, I want to go there. And sure enough, I found a way to do that. I cleaned toilets for a summer and went there. So that was the best job I've ever had, even till today.
So cool. So cool. What a great story. Boston Branch. And you thought it was a huge, huge lake.
Oh, it's a tiny little thing. It's a tiny lake. Yeah, when I went back there, I was like, did they change this lake? No, it's always been like this. Okay, well, things look bigger when you're a kid.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, hold on one second. I just want to show somebody this Promar product that we got available, the rock cod squirts. There's just a little bit more time of rock fishing, and then we're all going to be fishing offshore for this bluefin and all the other fish that are showing up in Southern California. So check out these rock cod squirts. You can get them from Promar. Here, I'll throw the QR code up on the screen. Check this out real quick.
YourSaltwaterGuide.com. But if you go and you look through the community section and look at all the pictures of all the great rockfish that Justin's catching with all of his clients and all the members are using, they're using these rock cod squirts, gang. These rock cod squirts are a game changer when you're fishing those rockfish. These things are already pre-rigged, ready to go. All you got to do is take them out of the package, you hook your sinker onto the already pre-tied swivel, and then you hook your main line, your piece of braid, right to the other swivel on the other end, and you have two pre-made hooks that already have squid lures on them, and these look just like the red crabs that these rock cod have been feeding on for the last 5 or 6 years out here in Southern California. These things are deadly. They work great. They also make them in a glow-in-the-dark white color. I like the pink ones the best. That seems to work the best for me, but you're gonna go with whatever you prefer. But these are the rock cod squirts. Put in the code YSWG and save 10% on your order. Check it out, 15% on all products over at Promar right now. Use the QR code on the bottom of the screen or simply put in the code YSWG and the number 15. You'll save 15% on all your products. And you know, Promar makes so many products. When you're on the website, you'll be blown away. We were blown away when we started working with them because we were using their products and we didn't even know it. From squid brails to bait scoops, to the live deception flash lures, to your cedar plugs and your landing nets and so much more. Check out PromarAhi.com for all your fishing needs. Check it out. I'll leave the QR code up there for a little bit longer. But as far as things being bigger than they seem now that we're grown-ups, the same thing was my dad and the guys that work for him. Those guys all seemed like giants when I was a kid growing up. I mean, as I became an adult and started fishing with them, I'd be like, you know, you were a giant when I was a little kid looking at you. And that's how it was for everything as far as fishing goes. The brown trout were just like the most amazing fish, Tom, when you talk about your trout. Because, you know, a largemouth bass or a smallmouth bass, they're kind of dull looking. But you see a brown trout, the thing looks painted, right?
Yes, for sure. And all those fish. I mean, that trout fishing opened up a whole new world for me because, like you say, the fish are kind of dull. Bass and smallmouth, they're beautiful fish, but they're typically in Tennessee. You fish for them in kind of murky water. I don't think I had ever really seen a fish before I had caught one. And when I went out west, that's all you did. You would look for the fish and then you would catch it. And I just thought that was, I did that one time and I was, you know, hooked, no pun intended. But yeah. And all those trout species are so beautiful.
Well, and it's such an intimate fishery. I mean, when you're fly fishing with a dry fly and no nymph, or, you know, I mean, when you're really pure fly fishing, it's the most intimate fishing there is because it's just you and the environment. It's you and the fish. There's no motors, there's no generators, there's no drones, there's no
definitely like that part.
It's you and the fish. It's the most intimate, the intimate fishery there is, I think. And it takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice. So,
and I think you and Tom have a great conversation here about how the trout fishing back in the olden days, that was kind of the thing. And then, like you guys were saying, Bill Dance, Rowland Martin, those guys kind of brought the bass fishing thing in. No one fished for bass. Michael, on the history of sport fishing, I just threw the QR code up there. Everybody that fished freshwater fished trout. Nobody really fished bass. If you watch the history of sport fishing, which was good for me to learn, and kind of talk about that, maybe Michael and Tom for a few minutes. Let people know.
I think Tom Ray Scott was the one that really transformed bass fishing. When he was sitting there, we got a story about him telling it in his own words. When he'd gone out fishing, they got blown off the water, and he got back into the hotel room, took a shower, and he said, "I'm laying there in my bed, in my underwear, watching the NCAA playoffs, and I'm thinking to myself, why doesn't fishing have a playoff? Why doesn't fishing have something?" And so when he set out to start bass tournament fishing, I think he's the one who really put bass fishing in front of the public.
Oh, for sure.
And he was the man. I mean,
yeah,
he you know, he's just.
I mean, really, when you think about like what he did, it wasn't just putting bass fishing on TV. It went from, you know, people just fishing in a canoe or a John boat or something like that to actually inventing boats that were designed for this sport, and then watching those boats. I mean, I can remember my grandfather had a bass boat, and he was so proud of this boat, and this was high tech, man. It was like a Glastron, I think.
Was it a Skeeter? Oh, a Glastron.
No, I think it was like a Glastron. This is before Skeeter probably even existed, but I mean, it had probably a little 40 horse engine on it. It had a graph on the front with real paper. Right. You know, there was paper in this graph that would, you know, show, And that's why they call them graphs. Like a lot of the bass fishermen today, they still talk about them as graphs. Like I call it a GPS, right? Like I call it a GPS because that's my primary use for it is navigation. They look at it, their primary use is that it's going to mark the bottom, or they're going to do forward facing sonar with it today. And the old school guys they call them graphs. And that's why, because it comes all the way from a real paper graph. That was if you took a wave over this little bass boat,
you're done.
Everything's ruined.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing waterproof back then. It was paper. I don't know. It came a long way, but that whole industry of just bass boats and bass tackle and bass lures. My gosh. I mean, bass have to be the greatest gift to retailers there's ever been. Whatever we do in saltwater pales in comparison to what they feel like they need in freshwater.
We used to call
for the lures.
Barrel bung. Was the first wooden plugs were called barrel bungs.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
You ever see any of those? You got so much stuff behind you. Do you have some old?
I don't have a whole lot of
plugs in there.
I don't have a whole lot of freshwater stuff. I actually collected freshwater to start with.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, when I decided to start this series, I sold my entire freshwater collection to one guy to help finance this thing. So I had a whole.
Well, you probably found a good owner, because there's nothing like you have your grandfather's old lures or something like that, and you're like, I don't know what I'm ever going to do with these things. Maybe I'll take them down to the flea market, and somebody buys them, and you're just like, that thing's going to go right in the tree and break off immediately. There's no, and he's like, that's a cheap lure, right? Like, no, that's my grandfather's lure.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of history there with those old glass eyes.
There is, but I need a place like you have with all that.
I just converted our garage. This is just a converted garage.
See, I have all that stuff, but it's in a big pile over in that room over there. And my wife thinks it's a pile of trash, which it kind of is, until you display it like that. It is kind of a pile of trash. Right? You got a bunch of old broken fishing rods and old reels that don't work.
20 years of stuff in a pile. It's insane.
Yeah.
And my wife finally said, listen, you got to do something with this. So why don't we just convert the garage to your
Turned out awesome, man. That's amazing. I would love to have my stuff displayed like that.
Yeah, it was a fun project, getting all that stuff out of the storage, covered with dirt, dust, and just.
I hope you became an expert framer. I got a lot of money in frames.
I got pretty good at framing.
I bet you did.
Aaron Brothers out here is a frame shop, and they do 2-for-1 specials every once in a while. So you buy a frame and get one for free. So I just wait till they have their specials and go in there and buy a whole bunch of them, and got real good at framing.
Yeah, it looks good.
But it's fun. Thanks. Yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Now, Tom, I got a question, kind of the hot button right now in the freshwater thing, and you brought it up, so I want to ask what you think of this. I know what us on the West Coast think of our sonar. We need our sonar more than anything. It's like a toss-up. You want your gyro stabilizing binoculars or your sonar? Which one do you need more? These forward-facing sonars now that all these bass guys are using, it's the biggest controversy in the history of the planet. And I believe it's because the guys that don't like them are the guys that can't afford it.
Also, too old
that they don't like it.
Yeah, too old to make it work.
Yeah, there's that going on. There's definitely that going on. And there is the deal that it can be very expensive. I mean, we have the same kind of thing going on. What do they call the sonar in the sport fish boats? The Omni? Is that what they're calling it? So,
the Omni.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about guys that can't afford that, but they can afford a $17 million boat, but you don't want to retrofit your boat with this sonar. I get it. So what happened in saltwater is, to my knowledge, I mean, I'm an outsider into that world, but what I understand from my big sport fish friends is that they just created different divisions. This is an Omni division and this is a non-Omni division. And if you're fishing in a boat that doesn't have Omni, you are at a serious disadvantage. I mean, they could mark a fish from how far away? You guys know better than me. 500 yards?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So
a lot of times. Yeah. and the guys that are good at it. And there's a lot of guys with Omnis that have no
I'm
idea
sure,
how to
but
use
then
the
they're the ones
machine.
I mean, there's guys with every kind of tool that have no idea how to use it, and they just keep piling on more tools,
Right.
hoping they're gonna figure it out. But I mean, the people that do know how to use it are very, very effective with it. Now, when it comes to the bass world, I'm an outsider in that world too. But Lowrance is my electronics company that I've been with for a long time, and they have forward-facing sonar that they call Active Target. So Active Target, we've been playing with it in saltwater for the last 5 or 6 years, and it's very effective when we're learning how to catch fish with it. It's really good for tarpon. Tarpon are really big, so they're easy to mark. It's really good to be able to even discern the difference between you're in a place and there's a lot of fish there. Are they sharks, or are they tarpon, or are they redfish, or are they what? I mean, that's one of the things that I like about it, is not just locating some fish out there in front of you, but you can clearly see a dorsal fin. You can clearly see pectoral fins that you can clearly say, those are sharks, right? Like, that's a bunch of sharks. If we put our bait out here, we're going to get sharked immediately. You go to another place, you're marking tarpon. And, a lot of the guys use the side scan. Lowrance calls it structure scan. I'm not sure what the other electronics companies call it, but there's a side scanning sonar, and it'll mark tarpon to 150 feet, but you'll be in one of these deeper places and they're not rolling. And if you're not using that, you would think there aren't any fish there. If you are using that, you can identify these schools and you can actively fish for them and catch them. Now, when it comes to the controversy on forward-facing sonar, it wasn't very many years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I was at ICAST, and every manufacturer was saying, we got a real problem. We don't have any young people in this sport. We got to figure out how to get more young people into the sport. And now we have, if you look at who's winning these bass tournaments now, these kids look like they don't have a driver's license. They are so young. You're wondering if somebody dropped them off, their mom had to back them into the boat ramp.
Down the ramp. Yep.
I mean, now, like Trey McKinney, he looks very, very young. I don't know how old he is. He's probably 18 or 19, but he looks very, very, very young. When kids start winning these tournaments using forward-facing sonar in a way that a 50-year-old even, I mean, I'm on the internet all the time. I'm pretty good with my electronics, but a kid that grew up playing video games their entire life is going to take to forward-facing sonar faster and better than we are.
Ever.
There's no question about it. So when you say there's controversy because people can't afford it, some of these boats that I see, you'll see a boat at ICAST and it'll be totally decked out, and it'll have every brand of electronics. So it'll have Humminbird, Garmin, Lowrance, all of them on the front, all three of them, because they all mark slightly differently, right? And it'll have 3 transducers on the trolling motor, and it'll have lithium batteries in there so that it's getting the perfect amount of power to it, so that it's powering these screens in front. And they're not even using, like, they go another screen above what Lowrance puts out and what Garmin puts out, and they'll use it's all the Garmin technology or the Lowrance technology, but it's being displayed on a high resolution screen right there. So they're able to see, like, so much. They'll have 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand on the bow of this boat.
Jeez.
Okay. So I can see that if somebody that you would say, okay, well, if that's where it's going, then a lot of people aren't going to be able to afford this. But what I know about the people that want to be professional fishermen, and the ones that want to be professional fishermen to the degree that they are going to do what it takes, if that's what it takes to compete, they're going to have that. Whatever that is. Just like if it costs $1 million to get in a sport fish, who do you know that really, really, really wanted to be a captain of a sport fish boat, like more than they wanted to breathe, that didn't eventually get there? Right? You, right?
Right.
I mean, there would be a day when you would think, there's
Absolutely.
no way that I'm ever going to be able to afford that boat. Well, you figure it out, man. You figure it out. And in some of these cases, maybe they're race car drivers that they can't afford a race car, but they will go and they'll rally sponsorship and they'll rally supporters and they will buy this equipment that they need, and then they'll share in their winnings with these guys. I don't know, maybe that's where it's going, but I don't think that that's a valid excuse. I do see that, if there's a barrier for entry that you got to put 50 grand on the front. I mean, we've been putting 50 grand on the back for years, right? Like you got to have a 150 horsepower motor or
Bigger,
more to
right.
compete in these tournaments. And so now you're just stepping it up again. So I don't know that I agree with that. I think that it's kind of not great that there's some sort of financial barrier for entry for some people that want to fish in the tournaments. What I think, and I've thrown this out there a couple times, is I think it's an opportunity not to split people up and either have it or don't have it. I think that they have an opportunity here to make fishing way more interesting to the observer,
Okay.
right? I think that if you said, okay, we have 12 tournaments, they're 2-day tournaments, so that's 24 days of fishing this year. You can use forward-facing sonar 12 days. You pick what days those are. You can use them in 2 days on this tournament, 2 days on this tournament. You can use them for 2 days on the first 6 tournaments, or you can use them sporadically spread out through here. But you have to designate when you're going to use them the morning of, and you have to you can only use them this much time. So there's certain lakes that are shallow or I don't know, maybe there's a lot of well-known structure. You can see it very clearly. Maybe you don't need the forward-facing sonar as much. So I think that would throw a tremendous amount of strategy into it.
Yeah.
To where you could have a guy that lags the first part of the season, but he hasn't even started using forward-facing sonar. And then he picks it up and takes off and starts winning in the back part of the season. I mean, that's pretty interesting. Or somebody that's leading and then they can't use it anymore. I don't know. I think that could be, if they positioned it right, I think it could be a real interesting way to bring more interest and engagement into the sport. But I think it's too far gone, honestly, right now. I think that they're the people that just absolutely hate it and feel like it's the end of the world. They're the people that absolutely love it and think that that's the only way they want to fish. And then there's this group in the middle that, like, I had Jacob Wheeler on and Jacob on the podcast, and Jacob Wheeler's won a whole bunch of stuff. And he's like, look, if they allow it, I'm going to use it. It's a tool. If they don't allow it, I won plenty of tournaments before we started using this stuff, and I'll be fine without it. Like, I'll go whichever way. I don't have a strong
opinion
either way. Just tell me what the rules are, and I will do whatever the rules say. If you can use it, I'm definitely going to use it. If you can't use it, that's fine too.
I really like your idea, Tom, of 12 on and 12 off.
Well, I think that makes the most sense to me, because what happens, and this is kind of a theme that I have, is I don't like to see a group of people, especially a group of fishermen, be split into two and start infighting against one another. And that's what's happening in the bass world. In fact, you have 3 groups now. You have the lovers of the forward-facing sonar, the haters of the forward-facing sonar, and then you have this other group that's in the middle that is kind of like, I'll do either way, man. I don't have a strong feeling either way. So now you have this one strong group of people broken up into 3 different groups. That is not healthy for the sport. It's not healthy for bass fishing, and bass fishing is important to us. Like, why are we talking about bass fishing? Because the most people that fish for bass. So when you start talking about anglers as an entire group, bass fishing is a very important part of that group. Well, no matter what you think of it,
Huge.
like, on the West Coast, maybe I don't know, you got to look great bass fishing out there too. So maybe there's a little bit more respect for bass, but in Florida, the offshore Florida guys, they care. It seems silly to go bass fishing, but it's not. it's the way that most people have access to the water and the most people have the access to the fish. And it's a huge group of people. And to split those people up, even in this nuanced, small world of competitive bass fishing, I don't know. I just don't think it's smart. I don't think that I don't like to see it. I don't like to see people get split like that and fight amongst themselves.
I love your idea. I think that's really, it's there. If you want to use it, you've got it 12 days out of the 24.
I think one of the tournaments is doing something like that. They have some kind of locking apparatus on there. And I mean, I think it would be kind of cool. Like the guy's having a hard time fishing and you know, he's going for the key. Like he's going to get the key and he's going to unlock that thing. And maybe he's got half a day left. So I could see how that could work, you know,
Like you said,
in that.
the strategy
Yeah.
of how you're going to fish the tournament. That I think the psychological aspects of bass fishing competitively is the psychological part is so much more important than the physical. I mean,
Well, there's a lot of psychological part. I mean, those guys, I think some of the hardest ways to make a living. It's funny, bring this around full circle. Being a professional wrestler, being a professional rodeo cowboy, and being a professional bass fisherman are three of the hardest ways to make a living that you could ever choose.
Yep.
And probably the rodeo cowboy and the wrestler are the most, because your body is enduring so much
abuse.
trauma.
Right.
And then you have to get in the truck and go 400 miles and do it again tomorrow night. And then you have to do that again tomorrow night. And you have to do that for 300 days a year. But the professional bass fishermen, they get beat up in those boats and they get in the truck and they go to the next one. And they get beat up in the boat and they go to the truck and if you win some money. But if you don't, I mean, that's a very tough way to make a living. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for anybody that chooses to do that. We tried it in the redfish tournament. So imagine that bass fishing tournaments had a third as much of the payout, and then you had to split it with your partner if you won anything.
Right.
That's professional red fishing. It didn't take me long to figure out this is not the best road.
Well, in bass fishing, you've got a 9-hour competition with no timeouts.
Oh, those guys do not stop.
It's 9 straight hours at least with no timeouts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, show me any other sport that it's 9 straight hours of competition back to back.
Yeah. And then get in the truck and go do it again somewhere else.
Yep.
But something you said a few minutes ago hit me pretty hard, Tom, because we're out here on the West Coast. Our rights to fish are being attacked. I don't know a better word to use than attacked. I was trying to think of a more eloquent word, but they want to basically shut down fishing in California. And then Michael Fowlkes has one of our guru guys out here on the West Coast, Frank Lepresti, that says he's been to enough meetings now that he believes they want to shut down fishing in the United States of America, recreational and commercial, period, end of story, whether it's a bass fisherman or not. So when you're talking about splitting these people up and causing all this controversy on the internet with the forward-facing sonars and the purist fly fishermen and all the different levels that you and I and Michael see on a daily basis where they're attacking each other. It's horrible for us, gang, because if you're not paying attention, the people that want to shut down fishing are watching this infighting between all of us, and they're just going, "Oh, this is going to."
Well, you can
so
even fuel
easy.
it, right? Like if they're really into that, if that's really the agenda, I mean, you could fuel both sides of that. Like you could get on anonymous accounts and bot farms. They do it all the time in political arenas where you don't even know who are these real people that are even commenting. But I mean, if that's the agenda, we live in a world today where it's very easy to fuel that on both sides and to make those groups split apart further. It's our job as real fishermen who really love this sport and want it to continue for our kids and grandkids. You have to look at that and realize, okay, that guy that you're so mad about because he's using bait in a place that you normally fly fish, or that guy that's throwing a lure, instead of fly fishing, or he's I don't know, whatever he's doing. He's trolling instead of drifting. He's on and on, all these groups. Man, you would have a much better opportunity to go to that guy and say, hey, look, I'm just drifting through here. If you want to troll around me, go ahead, whatever. But if you wouldn't mind messing up my, not messing up my drift here, I'm sure he would say, oh, hey, I didn't know what you're doing. Sorry. Like, no problem. I'll be right over here. That's a lot better than the infighting. I don't know. The infighting's not going to get us anywhere.
Totally agree.
Positive.
Very, very good solution too.
Now, Michael Fowlkes lives in a town called Laguna Beach, California, Tom. This will blow your mind. We had a thing come down the pipe 20 years ago called the MLPAs, the Marine Life Protection areas in Southern California, and they took away all of the city of Laguna Beach with the stroke of a pen. And it's absolutely one of the most, if you ever got a chance to come out to the West Coast and see Laguna Beach, California, you and I and Michael, we've got to travel to some pretty spectacular places. To think of the urban, I don't even know how to say it. It's just like there's 1.5 million people living in this little town, but it's one of the most beautiful places as far as the ocean goes on the planet. They took it all away from us just like that. And they're on a mission to do that to every little piece of California. How are you guys having the same problem?
Well, there's all kinds
of
problems in Florida. It's not quite that way, but I mean, there have been propositions to ban bottom fishing, and then other ways they have kind of said they're going to ban lead or any sort of weights, which effectively bans bottom fishing. There have been other things where there are manatee zones that are so far and widespread that you can't idle for 2 hours in the morning to get out of these manatee zones. And I look at that and I'm like, is that for manatees really, or is that some sort of an attack on fishing, right? Like because effectively you put that in, you're not saying you can't fish, but you can't fish there anymore. Like
you can't get there to fish.
You can't, right? So we've had a lot of things like that going on. And listen, the difference in the seasons and the red snapper and all of these fish that are just ultra protected that nobody can quite figure out why. I don't know what's going on or why, but there are definitely threats to our fishing on the East Coast as well as on the West Coast. They seem to be a little more aggressive about it where you are and a little more open about it. What we see is like just closures, but I couldn't really put my finger on it and say, it's this particular group that's trying to shut down fishing. It's so scattered and random that you just feel threatened a lot of times. But for me, like, you want to change the seasons, you want to cut down the numbers of fish that we can catch, that's fine. I'm perfectly fine with that. Even if you want to make it catch and release, that's perfectly I have no problem with that. It's when you tell somebody that they cannot go there anymore is when I have a real problem with it, because once they do that, like that Laguna Beach area, it's going to be really, really hard to open that back up.
I don't think we'll ever see it opened up again. And
that's such a shame.
And they pick the premium pieces of the coast or the islands, the area of an island that just produces the most fish. They'll close that down. Yeah. And they've said flat out, our goal is to abolish the sport of fishing. Our goal is
who is they? Like, what group openly says that they want to abolish the sport?
What's the fish commission, Dave, that you hang out with that Donna loves to go up and meet with?
The Fish and Game Commission in the state of California. Tom, what we did on this podcast is we were able to expose them because by law, they have to allow us to come to these Zoom meetings. So I brought 150 of my followers to the Zoom meeting. It was pretty amazing because we scared the hell out of them. They never seen anything like that. We, the people, finally got together here in California and actually stood for where we, the people in California, we just been giving it all away for so long. And I'm tired of it. And it didn't help my ratings, my social media presence. It didn't help it. It kind of hurt it, but I was just sick and tired of it. And we were about to lose a fish that the whole industry, and I sent you some stuff about it and asked you to collaborate with me a little bit, but we were about to lose a fish that the industry in California was built on called the barred sand bass, which there is no lack of. This is a migratory fish that comes up from Mexico and the whole thing, and they wanted to make it a zero take. Now, for a lot of people, this covers everything that the other side's looking for, because this is a food fish. This is a fish easily accessible to the masses and the low income people and the high income people and everybody. So this fish met every level of the DEI. And so we got in there and we were talking, and 150 of us raised our hand and got to talk, and we scared the hell out of them, and we stopped it. And now we can catch 4. They wanted 0, but we showed up. And I think that's what we have to do now. I really do. It's like we just got shown something when the orange guy we can't say his name, I don't want to get banned, but when the orange guy got elected, we just saw that we the people can make a difference. We the people, we're tired of this garbage, this taking away of everything that makes us smile. I mean,
well, the thing that we have,
you and Michael had to go flip burgers
going on the East Coast, and particularly in Florida, is a similar thing where anglers have stood up and rallied together for a cause, and that cause is clean water. We have such a mess with the Everglades, and the way that we have managed the Everglades over the last 50 years. We've dammed it, diked it, stopped the flow from going south, and made the flow of the water go out the side of the states. And so Lake Okeechobee is an area where if it rains a lot, the lake gets really high, and so in order to preserve and protect from flooding for all the areas that are around that, they will, drop the lake down, and all the water, instead of the natural flow south, the Everglades, the river of grass that was 200 miles wide, slow laminar flow, the water doesn't flow like that anymore. For every reason, from trying to drain the Everglades and make farmland there, to the sugar industry, to draining it for mosquitoes, draining it for development, draining it for all sorts of reasons, right? And building roads, and some of the things, pretty convenient to be able to drive across the state of Florida. It's not all bad,
Alligator
but
Alley,
that disrupts the flow of water. And then when that water has a lot of fertilizer and other things, and it shoots out the side, and you have an unnatural amount of fresh water going into places that shouldn't have that amount of fresh water, and certainly shouldn't have that amount of water that has all of this fertilizer and effluent and everything else, and not just from the sugar people, by the way. What we put on our lawns and on our grass, everything goes into this water, and then it shoots out the side and of Florida, both sides, and it creates these algae blooms which kill all the grass and everything. So there's a group called Captains for Clean Water, and it's 2 fishing guides, and basically they had their entire fishery destroyed where they fish, and they said, we got to do something about this. So they went on full time to fight for clean water, and anglers are a big part of the main core group that is moving the needle and actually doing things to change the laws and everything in Florida, so that some of this stuff won't happen anymore. But it's not just fishermen, just like it wouldn't be just fishermen where you are. Like, there's a lot of people that want to enjoy that water, right? Realtors, people that own restaurants, people that own the hotels there, people that are in the travel industry. All that's important to that whole industry. It's not just fishermen. That's what I think that that gets swept under the rug, is like, fishing. Like, what are you guys really doing out there? Do you have to fish? You can just go to the supermarket and buy a fish. Well, it's not just about fishing. I mean, you're out on the water, and I don't know how that could be justified, really, with the amount of money and the amount of revenue that comes in indirectly through fishing, boat sales, tackle sales, fuel, restaurants,
accommodations,
travel, all of that. I mean, Michael, how much fishing is worth, probably nationally and even by state. But I don't know where that would.
I think
If you say no fishing, where does that money come from?
it's something like $50 billion annually, Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, that fishing generates with motors and boats and travel and everything else. So, but it's $50 billion. And you take that away, where's that? And most of that's contributed toward conservation and healthy resources.
So you're saying that there is one group that is clearly stating that they want to abolish fishing in California?
Yeah. It's that Fish and Game Commission, which are appointees that are political appointees. They're not elected officials.
Seems like a wolf in sheep's clothing, man. They got the right name. It sounds like they're on our side, right?
Yeah,
but they're not.
It's the worst managed state in the union. And there's as far to the left as you can possibly get on every single aspect.
So have they already abolished hunting in California?
Pretty much. They got it down to almost no areas. Like one of our top guides, Justin Bottrell, Michael loves him. He was a deer hunting guide. He can't even do that anymore. There's no money in it. There's no areas that are open in California anymore. And now this is something, I mean, I had Cliff Gray on here a couple times, and this is something that's amazing. They want to reintroduce the grizzly bear to California. It's like, are you out of your ever-loving mind? This animal eats people. And it's just it. And these are the people on the commission. We had to sit and listen to it while we were waiting for our opportunity to talk about fishing. And we listened to these people talk about the fish and the ocean and things that they've never even seen. They've never been out on the water. They admitted it in an open forum that they had never even. One lady said she was going to go out fishing last year, but the boat she was going to go on broke down. She's the one making the decision, Tom, whether you or I get to fish or not. That's why I thought it was so important when I sent you some of that stuff. It's like, we need everybody in Florida to get, because I'll bring my people to anything that you guys have as far as a Zoom meeting goes. I need you guys from Florida to come and see, because it's going to keep going. It's going to keep going across the United States. And you get to watch what California does. Everybody's going to do this. If they can take it away from us, and they already got a third of the California coast. They already got it. It's gone. It'll never be open again. We'll never see it open. They don't bring stuff back once they take it. I don't know. They do that in Florida. They give it back to you. They never give it back in California, ever. And it's crazy because and then we're going to end on this, because I promised you guys an hour, and I'm sorry we've gone over, and I know you're both super busy. One thing, Tom, I don't know if you understand this, and we end the show every time with this because this is so important. If you've seen the history of sport fishing, if you haven't, the Declaration of Independence was built, and Michael starts to smile, but was built in the oldest fishing club in the world.
Schuylkill Fishing Club. They call it the Castle. Formed in 1732 by some of the guys you probably have heard of: Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, John Hancock. Those are the guys that fished. And they met under the guise of a fishing club to discuss what it was going to take to declare our independence from Great Britain. Had they been caught, they would have been hung for treason. So fishermen were meeting under the guise of a fishing club to write the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence at the Schuylkill Fishing Club, which is still in existence today. It's the longest standing, continually operative fishing social club in the world.
That's cool.
And our forefathers, the men that wrote our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, all did so from the Schuylkill Fishing Club.
That's super cool.
It's the coolest thing I found out in the whole deal. So.
And you guys can see all about it on the History of Sport Fishing, the 12-part docuseries that Michael produced. And it's an amazing, amazing thing to learn the history of fishing. And we had Tom Rowland with us today, and I want to thank you, Tom, for taking an hour. I know you're one of the busiest guys in this industry, so thank you for taking your time and being with Michael and I. We really were looking forward to having you on the show, so Thank you so much. And Michael, folks, always a pleasure. Everybody loves listening to you. Because of you, they kind of watch me. Thank you very much. And Tom, I
Yeah,
will see you
looking
at
forward to it.
ICAST.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
I'm looking
I'd
forward
love to
to
do
it
this with
too.
you guys anytime.
Tom, thank you so much for being on.
Great.
Great.
We will lean
Okay.
on you hard, buddy. We will lean on. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Again, like I always say, the only place you get the truth is right here. It might not be the truth you want, but it's the truth. Turn